Yes, people, hope everyone is good. In today's video, I'm going to talk about something a little bit different. Now, everyone's aware we've had a lot of unrest in this country in the last couple of months, particularly since the new government was elected. There's a lot of anger, a lot of people really disappointed with the decisions that this government's been making, and as a result of that, obviously, we've seen the riots and the protests that happened and loads of people being sent to prison as a result of that and everything else that went along with it. So what does that tell us? Well, it illustrates to me that, especially now, the way things are, protests and riots do absolutely nothing to achieve any kind of change, especially in this country, the way it is at the moment. The government have seen to that, haven't they? You know, they've already put these policies in place so that if people speak out, they're getting arrested, they're getting sent to prison for protesting. And particularly, obviously, I mean, rioting will never ever work. Rioting will always have the opposite effect of what you want it to do, because it just gives the government the opportunity to just say, well, everybody who's, against our policies, or everybody who's, speaking out on these issues are violent hooligan nutcases. So the rioting does nothing. Protesting, it's your right, living in this country, living in England or in Great Britain, to protest. You have the right to protest as part of our constitution. Now, the problem is that right to protest means almost nothing these days. I mean, what difference does it make people protesting? The only real positive that I see coming out of protesting is people, you are getting the message out there to the public. But in terms of influencing government decisions or any sort of government policy, it does absolutely nothing whatsoever. It makes no difference whatsoever to the decisions that the government make. And that's clear the way that things are, particularly with this government. We've got at the moment the worst government that I've ever had in my lifetime. A socialist, Labour, almost, I would say, communist government whose policies are verging on ludicrous. It's just a government full of crazy people. David Lammy as the Foreign Secretary is just an absolute joke, and the Prime Minister, Keir Starmer, is just a complete, absolute waste of time. Now, I can understand why going on a protest and getting involved, it feels like you're doing something. It feels like, you're getting involved, you're part of the cause, you're meeting other people who feel the same way, and it feels as if, we're getting somewhere, we're doing something good, which you are doing something good, but the result of that good thing that you're doing is not effective. I mean, just look at these Just Oil people that have been protesting over the last few years. I know that's a completely different issue to the protests that have happened in the last couple of months, but how successful have those Just Oil people been? Not successful at all. All they've done by stopping traffic and things like that is just completely turn people off from their message. Whether it's a good message or a bad message has become irrelevant. I mean, I've seen videos of the Just Oil people stopping traffic, and they're stopping cars, and there's people getting out of the car saying, look, I know I agree with what you're saying, but I've got a disabled kid in the car that I need to get to hospital, so can you move out of the way? And they're like, no, we need to stop the oil, It's never going to have the effect that you want it to have. It's just going to have the opposite effect, if anything. Now, as I said, protests like the protests, Tommy Robinson's protest. Now, I'm not gonna say whether I agree or disagree with any of these people who are protesting. That's not the point of this video, to say what my beliefs are on them matters. All I'm trying to get across is that protesting these things does not really have an effective outcome at all, apart from making you feel like you're doing something towards the issue. So what can you do instead? Well, you might say, unfortunately, it's just the way things are. We live in a democratic society where we elect MPs in each area. Those MPs then sit in the House of Commons. They debate these issues, and the government then makes policies and laws based on them issues that are being debated. So there's only really one way that you can affect that as an individual, and that is if you can some way influence your local MP to take on your cause to the House of Commons. So, for example, if your local MP is a Labour MP, it's a lot easier for you because they're in government. The Labour MPs are obviously in government, so they can take ideas straight to the party. They can, then be decided by the Prime Minister if they want to debate those ideas internally. If the local MPs not in government, it's a bit more difficult, but you can influence them to ask questions at Prime Minister's question time, which will then mean that it's, if all the MPs are asking the same questions, then sooner or later Parliament's got to debate these issues, is my point. It might seem like, it's a waste of time speaking to your MP, but look at what's happened recently, today actually, with the winter fuel payment for the pensioners. Obviously that's a big controversial issue over the past month or so. Well, since the government got in and they, announced that they were going to be cutting the winter fuel payment, it's been a big issue and there's been a lot of controversy about it. Now, what happened was, a lot of elderly people are the type of people who will write to their MPs if they've got a gripe. Younger people like myself and people younger, the younger generations than me, won't really think to do that, But the elder generation, they love writing letters and complaining about things, and they'll write to their MP. And so through writing to their MP, calling their MP, going to see their MP at their weekly clinics, the MPs, the Labour MPs, have been pressured to go against this policy. So what's happened at the conference, the Labour conference that's going on at the moment, is the backbenchers, or the majority of the Labour government, have voted, I should say the majority of the Labour Party, have voted against this policy that Labour want to bring in. So they've voted that they want it debated to get rid of this policy. And that, in my opinion, is through pressure being put on those MPs by constituents. Now, it might seem like it's a pointless exercise. What is it going to do? Just me writing to my MP? But like I say, that is, unfortunately or fortunately, however you look at it, that is how the way this country works. Them MPs are the only people who can do anything about it. So the only way that you can do anything about it is to try and influence them MPs. So write to your MP, go and see your MP, call them, and don't just do it once, do it over and over and over and over again. If you believe in something and you really want to get something changed, that's what you have to do. There's a great film called The Shawshank Redemption. It's about a prison break, and in that film there's a part where the main character is trying to get some books for the library, and what he does, he writes to the local government every week over and over and over. He just keeps sending a letter a week, a letter a week, a letter a week, and eventually they send him a letter back saying, right, we've got you some books together. This is like a year later or something like that. They say, right, we've got you some books together, we're giving you this, we're giving you that, we're giving you the other thing. Please stop writing us letters. And he says after that, he says, right, that's great, we've got all these books, I'm going to start writing 2 letters a week now and see what else we can get. And that's kind of the point, really. That's the only way that you can put pressure on these people. Go see your MP, write to them, call them, do all 3. If you really believe in something, that is going to have far more of an effect than any sort of protesting, and certainly than any sort of rioting or anything like that. So that's just my 2 pence worth on that issue. Hope it's been interesting. Hope it's been a bit informative. Thanks for coming. See you all soon. Take care.